Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GCP podcast Under the Gulmohar Tree. Just as the Gulmohar Tree symbolizes growth and resilience, Under the Gulmohar Tree brings operators, investors, and M&A professionals together to share insights on scaling mid-market businesses. Through candid conversations, we explore leadership, innovation, and value creation, uncovering lessons and strategies to help you grow and thrive. Hi, Sid. Welcome to the GCP podcast Under the Gulmohar Tree. We're very excited to have you. Just so our audience knows, Sid is the president of Crisis 24, a GardaWorld subsidiary. Sid, can you please give a quick introduction and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. First, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's a privilege, and I'm happy to be able to join you here today. So, it's a great question how I got here today. I mean, it's interesting when one looks back, things they somehow look like they were logically following one after the other. But as we all know, when you're going forward, you don't know really where the next path or the next journey may be, and so it was definitely an adventure. But I started out of college wanting to pursue healthcare and be involved with healthcare and impacting people's lives through health. And initially, I thought that I would be doing that by practicing as a clinician, physician, somewhere in the medical area. But as the path took me, I went more into an opportunity in a management consulting setting to work in healthcare settings, and actually learned that I had a passion for working on the more of the business side of healthcare. And so what I learned through understanding the business elements of how the health system functioned in the United States was that that was another way to make positive impact in healthcare. Is you could do it one patient at a time as a clinician, or you could do it populations at a time by trying to impact the ways in which the health system functioned and the business ways in which it interfaced with other entities and frankly people. So that was the start of the journey, and it took me to different locations geographically. But I would say the most interesting part was it gave me the opportunity to try different types of ways of participating in business, which I had a passion for, and I developed through that first experience. But I would say my initial career was more on the entrepreneurship side, where I was working in startups in the Silicon Valley. I did a couple there with with VC-backed companies, and had the privilege of actually co-founding one of those companies I worked within that was also entrepreneurial and did end up getting VC funding. But excuse me, after that opportunity, became interested in understanding how one could be an entrepreneur within larger companies. And that's where I had the chance to be an intrapreneur and working as an entrepreneur, but within the scope of a larger company and trying to make growth happen. And in the last stage of my career, kind of in this recent stage, have gotten more to be working in larger companies. And from that perspective, it's been different working in large enterprises, publicly traded, some not, but it's been a different experience in many ways. But I think what I would come to your question in terms of how did I get to where I am now is through that journey, learning what I had more of a kind of ability to impact in a positive way through things I loved and liked making impact with. And then at the same time, the things that I did well. And so in my journey of entrepreneurship, intrapreneurship, and larger company management, I found that the intrapreneurship experience was something I really enjoyed. It was the opportunity to have the foundation of a larger company behind you, but still the opportunity to be entrepreneurial and grow. And that's actually what, fortunately, I found at Crisis 24 was that opportunity to have that larger base of company within GardaWorld, but also to be part of a business group that was fast growing and looking to be very entrepreneurial, which is Crisis 24. And so it was a way in which I could do what I loved from that perspective, but also weave that into an area that I have passion for, which is that business side of healthcare integrated with security and physical security and cybersecurity and other types of risk management. So maybe that was a way of answering your question in terms of how I got to where I am now. But I would maybe cap it off by saying I found that the journey till now has been interesting because I've learned about myself. And in that process, I would say I've come to the point where at this part in my career, it's about making positive impact, doing what I love with those I love doing it with, in the service of those that love what we do. And that's kind of how I got here. I mean, I want to make positive impact. I feel we do that at Crisis 24 every day with who we serve. I want to love what I do, and I love being entrepreneurial and growing things and working with clients and bringing in new business and working with the team. And then I want to work with people who I love working with. And it's a really great culture here and a great group of people. It's an international footprint, which I enjoy, and doing it for those that love what we do. I mean, our clients are significantly benefited from what we provide to them every day, whether it's their physical security, their health security, or otherwise. And it makes a difference when you see that impact and you see that appreciation.
Thank you, Sid. That was super helpful. I want to double click on a couple things. One is having led both private equity backed companies and Fortune 500 companies, what are the key differences in leadership styles required in these different environments?
Right. It's a great question. I would say, and in the private equity situation, I mean, private equity can a situation can be in a very, very large company, or it can be in a lower mid market or a mid market company. But I found the private equity companies I worked with were more in that one was a lower mid market company, one was a growth stage kind of mid market. And so it lended itself to allowing more of that entrepreneurialism. And what I found is it allowed more for me to be a player coach, being both. And I find in certain instances people are players. You have to go and deliver every day. And in other instances people are coaches. They're kind of behind the lines and directing, but not necessarily on the field. And what I found with the at least the private equity related situations that I've been involved with, granted they were growth stage, but it allowed me to be a player coach. Whereas in Fortune 500 companies, it's a little harder to be that player because typically these organizations are larger. They're reporting numbers every quarter, so you've got to be directing, the action, and there's not a lot of time really to be on the field because of everything that's moving at the same time.
Thank you, Sid. Second item I want to double click on. You've been instrumental in driving a Nasdaq IPO, turnarounds, and strategic sale transactions. What common strategies or principles do you rely on to reach these significant milestones?
Sure. I think the principles, maybe to touch on, I I think it's from those things. Those are all events that don't just happen overnight. I mean, it takes a lot of planning, strategy, and it's not a one person effort. It takes getting a team, and in some cases a village, motivated and on board and marching, in the same direction with conviction and passion. And so I find that is something that I would maybe say is really independent of if it's a Nasdaq IPO, a turnaround, or the like. It's being able to develop a compelling vision that is motivational, not just for oneself, but for the others that are going to be along for the ride. And that in often cases is team members, it's partners, it's clients, it's even just in some cases even competitors, because you need to have that whole ecosystem set and what I would say is ripe for making these situations happen. And I would say also principles. I would say persistence, because in some of these cases, as we all have witnessed before, a lot of stars can align, but the timing is off. And you just need to be persistent and continue to stick with it and motivate others to do the same till timing does become right. And as an example, markets may not be ripe for an IPO, and so you got to weather on and continue and ensure you can keep things moving in the right direction, such that when the window does open, you're ready.
Completely agree with that, Sid. Thank you. Now, I'm not sure if you've evaluated strategic acquisitions along the way as a growth lever. If you have, when you look at strategic acquisitions from a company perspective, not a private equity perspective, what are critical factors you ensure that that the deal will drive profitable growth for the company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I find that in today's environment, growth is definitely two pronged. I mean, there's organic growth, which is very important, but the strategic acquisitions are in large part what really can differentiate that pace of growth and how much of it comes in addition to organic. So, at least in my experience, what I found is the key attributes of those strategic acquisitions that enable best outcomes are: one, ensuring that there's alignment with the management team and just even the key employees of that potential firm to be acquired. And so alignment in the sense of culturally, in terms of goals and where the end kind of North Star is for that organization, and how does that align with the acquiring organization. Oftentimes, if there is an alignment, it is not alignment, even though it might be the company being acquired might have a great product or a great footprint in the marketplace. I mean, that can disappear fairly quickly. And if you don't have the alignment and those people that are willing to come in and be a part of that new team and be motivated to continue to drive the growth, because they're now a part of something that they probably didn't have the capability set with pre-acquisition. I think that makes a big difference. People always talk about 1 + 1 should be more than 2. And that's a concept I think that also resonates with me on strategic acquisitions. It's in often cases, it's more so than I would say even the product capabilities you acquire, or the what would you say, the market access you acquire. It's really the people that are acquired that I think are the gems, and oftentimes that gets overlooked. And so finding those ways in the strategic acquisitions to ensure that those key players are not just retained, but are passionately motivated to leverage the new footprint they have to become what I previously described as those intrapreneurs, those entrepreneurs that now through the acquisition have that foundation that they didn't have before to be able to go make happen what they couldn't make happen before.
Thank you, Sid. That was really helpful. Let's go back to your healthcare roots. You've spent a lot of time in healthcare. At TELUS Health, most recently, you oversaw $1.7 billion in annual revenue and global healthcare services. What were the biggest challenges and how did you navigate them? Because healthcare is complex, right? In US and Canada and globally. So we would love to get your perspective on that.
Sure. You said it. Healthcare is it's a very meaningful and impactful field for sure, but at the same time, it is challenging. It's been said that healthcare is a very local business. Is very delivery of healthcare depends on where you're based and where you are kind of in a situation of need. So from that perspective, building large healthcare businesses it's more difficult than building just a large business in general. In healthcare, it's even more complicated because of that localization factor. What works in one place might not work in another. The regulatory conditions are different, and even the resourcing needs are different. Hiring sometimes of clinicians and physicians is not the same everywhere due to just availability and other reasons. So I would say the key elements there that were interesting and complicated to navigate, but I think we were able to make a good amount of progress on, were number one, finding relevant capabilities that mattered to people that would enable building a global business, because TELUS Health in that case was global. We provided services around the world. And what we found is most of those services were on the employee assistance program side, the EAP side, which was more around providing health guidance, counseling, access to clinical services from a remote virtual perspective, as well as in cases in Canada, walking in and having a clinic be able to see and service your health needs. So I think that was a key area that enabled us to achieve growth. The other thing I would say was the ability to invest and be motivated to go with our clients where they and their employees needed to be. So just take as an example, if you have we had many large multinational corporations as clients. And in many cases, they didn't want to work with one health vendor in one country in which they had employees and another health vendor in another country. And you keep playing that forward. If they were in 20 countries, they didn't want to be managing 20 separate vendors providing health care coverage or services for their employees. So becoming that one-stop shop per se for an employer to really be able to address their employee needs for that specific area and field was what we found a lot of success in. And there weren't many firms that were able to do that. So that was, I think, something that really helped us. It was not easy, as you mentioned. I mean, having a large workforce. I mean, we had upwards of 10,000 people within TELUS Health that were spread around the world, not just in the U.S. alone. 50 states, 50 different certifications or regulatory regimes having to be compliant with. But then you put in other countries in there, and you see how it exponentially grows in terms of the legal and regulatory compliance complications that needed to be addressed. So it was definitely not something any one could just say, well, we're going to go and start this and do it tomorrow. Takes a long time to get to be able to do what TELUS Health did. But I think they did it successfully and continue to be really well positioned for, I think, what the world is showcasing in terms of need from a health perspective around the world and into the future.
Thank you, Sid. Let's combine healthcare and technology for a second. So, looking ahead, you've been in technology roles, you invest in technology, you've been in healthcare. Looking ahead, which emerging trends do you see in healthcare technology that you believe will have the most transformative impact on businesses in the future?
That's a really insightful question. I think technology is changing so many fields. Healthcare as an industry has not been as penetrated or impacted by technology as other fields. And that's been the case for my almost 30 years working in the field. It's been the case. But I think we're at a point now where that can really change. And healthcare can be an area that is not just significantly impacted by technology, but could be impacted by technology in a good way more than any other industry, I would say. And the ways I see, there are elements that are process enhancement opportunities that technology can enable, and think of machine learning and elements of AI that I see. But if you apply that AI componentry and capability to the broader sense of what healthcare can do in terms of enabling care and enabling essentially the right care at the right time in the right place for the right person, that's what technology in particular, I think AI can be a really instrumental component of, or in enabling. And that's where I'm really optimistic in terms of the potential. So when I think about it, it's that AI piece of technology that can really be significantly impactful. And just as an example, one potential use case as it relates to care delivery, it's not a surprise that the number of clinicians in healthcare is decreasing, and that's because of clinicians being increasingly frustrated with the administrative burdens that they're having to deal with, and it's with overwork. I mean, just the increased clinical needs coming out of the pandemic that were not addressed and then all of a sudden had to be addressed by patients. So the number of clinicians has been declining, and that is put into a context where the amount of healthcare needs have been increasing. So there's a mismatch, and that's where AI and technology can provide some ways of ameliorating that. And I think it's through assisting. I would never say AI becomes the sole pilot, but I think the word co-pilot comes to mind. But AI enhancing the ability of clinicians to do more. And when I say more, it's enabling care that can be delivered not necessarily in person, but via virtual means to people who might be in far out geographic areas that were not accessible by care before. And it could also be for triaging patients so that they're more effectively directed to the right type of care, whether it's self-help, through content, or it's a virtual visit, or if it's and there truly is a need for an in-person visit, and with what type of specialist, if a specialty is needed, that care gets delivered by. I think that optimization of triaging and routing can have huge gains, not just for throughput, but for quality of care and satisfaction with the care delivered. So anyway, that's just be a use case or two where I think that the AI piece of the technology and enabled for health and to be enabled for health could be significantly game changing.
Thank you, Sid. Super helpful. Now, how do you use technology in your role today? It's a very complex world out there, a lot of risk vectors, a lot of uncertainty. How do you guys use technology today in your current role to enable um, providing security to high net worth individuals out there and the companies?
Yes, very good question. It's everyone wants the latest greatest technology, but getting it implemented is always something that has to be thought through very carefully. So I would say still, I mean, it's not that any organization has mastered it, but how we've been going about it is just ensuring that we have really tight interfacing internally as a company between our product teams, our solution teams, and our technical teams and technology engineering teams. And so from that perspective, creating that seamless interaction and kind of thinking on how to move forward with internally using and deploying technology is kind of task number one. And so I found that has been really helpful because by I wouldn't say no one's mastered it, right? But in terms of getting proficiency and expertise in it, we're able to then replicate that in terms of how we implement technology for our clients. And so that in often cases started predating my time, but technology initially was you had to get it in the field right through deploying technological hardware. In our global medical concierge business, we provide clients with medical technology, which is hardware, a handheld device that can capture 9 vital signs that an individual has, such that can be relayed to the physician or the caretaker digitally and enable quick understanding of one's health condition and then the adequate care required. In those cases, that's actually putting devices in the field, right? So it's the implementation is through delivery or a pickup kind of process. But I find in other parts of technology where we're migrating to is almost the BYOD, bring your own device kind of model, where people can leverage existing tools, cell phones, or other technologies they may have hardware-wise. And then we're able to deploy our technology via software. And an example of that is, for instance, in our duty of care line of business, where we provide risk management solutions that are related to travel risk management, critical event management, mass communication to an employee base. That capability gets delivered via an app that is on a mobile phone and a cell phone, a smartphone. And so we're going increasingly that direction because the ability and the time required, the ability to disseminate the technology increases orders of magnitude, and the difficulty of implementing decreases. And so that's kind of how we're going about it, is trying to leverage more of that digital distribution of technology capability and a remote kind of monitoring element to where previously it used to be getting shipments made of hardware devices.
Thank you, Sid. That was really helpful. As we wrap up the podcast, one thing I would love to get your perspective on, we keep hearing cyber is the next war zone, right? And as you are dealing with these complicated situations for high net worth individuals, family offices, Fortune 500 companies, how are you thinking about cyber in that security space?
I like that question a lot because it is top of mind, not just for us, but for a lot of our clients, specifically, not just on the enterprise side, but on the high net worth, ultra high net worth family office side. And the one distinction between those different types of clients are, on the enterprise side, there's usually a corporate cyber function within the technology arm of a company that is overseeing an executive's digital footprint in cases, but also their potential vulnerabilities to cyber impact or unwanted cyber penetration and the like. The difference is, on the high net worth and the ultra high net worth, there isn't that infrastructure in place. A lot of these organizations are these families, offices, have significant capital that they are overseeing and managing and directing investment decisions on. But as you can imagine, the cyber infrastructure guarding that is not as robust, and in some cases is non-existent to what you would see in a corporate environment. Hence, that becomes a huge exposure and risk area for them, and hence it becomes a very large opportunity area for us. So that's an area that we've been putting significant time in, number one, to educate our clients and frankly even the market of the vulnerabilities that exist, and two, to share the ways in which we can help there. So we fortunately have been able to assemble amazing specialists that have done cyber security related monitoring and protection for national governments, state and local governments, federal agencies, and they bring that know-how to Crisis 24 and are able to offer that to our clients such that they can achieve the same level of protection and methodology and process-oriented kind of cyber monitoring that they would get if they were a member of government or someone being protected by these governmental agencies with those capabilities. So that's what we're very proud of, but at the same time doing our best to make sure that the market understands the vulnerabilities and can then take their decision on how they can protect themselves, and knowing that we can be one of those options.
Thank you, Sid. I promised one last question. It's been so much fun getting to speak with you. So, along with Crisis 24, you also manage a family office investing across the asset class. What criteria do you have while you evaluate software or other technology acquisitions or investments?
Well, it's an interesting question in the sense that there's no one right formula, and it really depends on the investor, and I think also the group that is really benefiting from those investment decisions. It's really to that point of what is most in need or impactful for them. From my situation and from our case, we've really been motivated by making investments in areas that we have familiarity with, and we have the ability to make impact in those entities that we invest in not just with an investment, but from the opportunity to share knowledge, provide go-to-market assistance, to provide strategic insights, and to help with opening opportunities for that company that we invest in to be able to realize growth at a greater and faster clip than they might have otherwise. And so it's from that perspective, I think it's for us unique in the sense that we're looking to put not just our capital to work, but we're looking to put our time in to make true value creation opportunities happen. I would also say that from the perspective of what's in the criteria or what's of interest, it's really being a part of something for the long term and not necessarily having a set timeline of when an exit needs to happen. Patient capital, or capital that is looking for the long-term opportunity to generate wealth and value that can be harvested and realized over time without putting an artificial timeline on it. And that's been something that I think has been differentiating for us too, and has taken some of the stress out of the investment decision as well. Because if you're having to make an investment and know that it's going to have to bear fruit or turn within a certain specific time period, that adds a whole another element of calculus to the whole equation. But if you have the long view, it changes the game a little bit. And frankly, the other thing I would mention is knowing that what I just said, having the long view, trying to invest in areas where there's a level of expertise and knowledge that can be helpful to the company being invested in. When you marry those two things together, it lends itself to, we can probably do a handful of investments at any one time. It's not that we can do like some of these larger funds that can do 20, 30, 40, 50 deals and be able to monitor and assist all of them. We're just not in that zip code or that capability set. But I think it is for the right reasons. It suits what we're looking to do and how we're looking to do it.
Thank you so much, Sid. It was a really fun conversation. I'm sure our audience is going to love it. Thanks once again for making the time to attend our podcast, and we look forward to having you again
I
sometime soon.
appreciate it, Sumit. Thank you for hosting and having me on as a guest, and really excited about what you and Gulmahar Capital Partners are doing. I think you're already making significant positive impact in the market, and I know you're doing that with the companies you're involved with too. So very excited and very much looking forward to watching how you continue to grow and make big things happen.
Thank you so much, Sid, for your kind words and for your support throughout that journey. Much
You take
appreciated.
care.
Thank you.